States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The prayer this morning will be offered by the good delegate representing Howard County.
Good morning and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Good morning.
This is an Irish blessing for all of you, but in particular for the Appropriations Committee. May you have all the happiness and luck that life can hold, and at the end of your rainbows, may you find a pot of gold. Amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 124 members present, the House is now in session. Clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March 6th, 2025.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the journal.
To order, petition, memorials, and other papers. Message from the Senate. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the bills and committee assignment.
Senate Bill 342, Senator Sidnor, Ways and Means. Senate Bill 447, Senator Lamb, Health and Government Operations. Senate Bill 587, Senator Muse, Health and Government Operations.
Report of the Committee on Appropriations. Report number 17. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 467, Metro Funding Modification Act of 2025, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader rise?
Floor leader.
Oh, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
The bill, I understand the bill was amended. I tried to read the bill. It's fairly complicated about changing of formulas, but the fiscal note was pretty clear when it said that assuming that the Commonwealth of Virginia and the District of Columbia enact a similar legislation changing the formula for contributions to WMATA, that the state of Maryland would be on the hook for more monies going into WMATA coming out of the Transportation Trust Fund, and that may change the capital grant program of the fund because it's already fully subscribed. With the amendments to the bill, what did it do? Is that still reality as articulated in the fiscal note?
There are no amendments to the bill.
So the fiscal note that exists on the bill was the absolute analysis of the bill that was passed by the committee?
Yes.
Okay, so would the function of changing the formula then result in taking, I believe it said, they didn't give a specific estimate, they said tens of millions of dollars more, I think that was the phrase, would go from the Transportation Trust Fund programs to our mandated appropriation or contribution to WMATA, and that would result in projects within the TTF in other parts of the state obviously would have less money. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say that what this bill does is it rebases the original formula for this particular capital grant for WMATA. So the original $500 million that was established years ago to divide by the 3 jurisdictions will be increased for the impact of inflation, and that over since 2018 until when this bill takes effect, which, by the way, it doesn't take effect until DC and Virginia pass it. That final amount, increase for inflation, will be the formula divided by the number. For Maryland, it's something like 32%. And that amount of money would then go to WMATA.
And the calculation of that will be that it's more money.
Yes, it'll be $58 million the first year.
So we're going to give $58 million more out of the Transportation Trust Fund that's for the entirety of state programs, and we're going to reallocate that on top of what we're already giving WMATA. If, as you said, I mean, this is a contingent bill, all the partners have to come in line. We don't know if and when that's going to happen, but if it does happen, right off the bat, we're $58 million short from everybody else's TTF projects because we're giving it to WMATA.
Assuming we don't have any other revenue coming into the TTF between now and then, yes.
Would it be possible to special order this to, I assume, Madam Speaker, that we're going to have a second session today. Would it be possible to special order this to the second session for purposes of possible amendment?
Of course.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Move to special order, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is a special order HB 467 to the second session. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill has been special ordered. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 19. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 693, Commercial Financing Small Business Truth in Lending Act, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Yes.
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
the committee moves to special order this bill to sign die.
Question for the House is a special order HB 693 to sine die. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? I think the ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1273, Maryland Strategic Energy Investment Fund and Customer Cited Solar Program alterations.
Question
Favorable.
for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 16. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1253, Maryland Department of Social Equity established, favorable with amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The First Amendment is technical. The Second Amendment changes the name of the department to the Department of Social and Economic Mobility and makes clarifying and other technical changes. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 18. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 76, Public Safety Officer Performance of Duties, Death and Disability Benefits, favorable with amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes the disability benefits language from the bill. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 20. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 128, responding to emergency needs from extreme weather, Renew Act of 2025, favorable with amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the original provisions of the bill and adds the study as described. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 567, Dorchester County Alcoholic Beverages, Arts, Beers, and Wine License, favorable with amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, House Bill 567 establishes an arts, beer, and wine license in Dorchester County. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires certain consent for a waiver of distance restrictions. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 47. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 829, Public Utilities, Transmission Lines, Advanced Transmission Technologies, favorable report as amended adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, 473227/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Transmission lines seem to be a significant topic of public debate, and this is the primary, not the sole, but the primary legislative vehicle that the House has chosen to address the issue through. And so what I will say to you about the amendment, we'll just say very clearly, the Commission, Public Service Commission, may not issue a certificate of public convenience and necessity for the construction of an overhead transmission line until the governing body of each county, which would include Baltimore City, on which any portion of the overhead transmission line will be located, has given approval for the construction of said line within their jurisdiction. What does that mean? Well, I can tell you this. There's nobody proposing to build a transmission line through the state's largest county. We know what county that is. There's nobody proposing to build a transmission line through the state's second largest county. We know what county that is. There's nobody proposing to build a transmission line through the state's largest city. We know where that is. But those individuals wish to impose their desire for a statewide system upon people who will suffer the only harmful effects of the transmission lines in a lot of other people's counties and jurisdictions. Is energy transmission a statewide issue? It certainly is. But people get tired year after year after year of being told you have to do this for the betterment of all when the policies and the impacts are not felt by all. I can suggest to you that if someone came tomorrow and said, I'm going to build a significant transmission line through the state's second largest jurisdiction or first largest jurisdiction, and I'm going to take a lot of land and I'm going to impede the potential home values of your residents and your constituents, there would be 100 people in this room that would say, not going to do it. Not going to do it. But you will do it if the transmission line comes through places that you do not represent or that you do not have responsibilities for in this chamber. You will do it if the transmission line comes through other people's counties. And just like other people's money, eventually other people's counties you run out of. You run out of the ability to put all the negative aspects of transmission lines on other folks, that they lose property values, that they have concerns with, that they lose their land, and you get to keep all of yours, and things move along. Maybe the next transmission line should go through the Up County, the agricultural preserve. Maybe it should go down I-83 and cut out large swaths of city land. But it won't, because you'll always look to put it in somebody else's area. Now, the obverse of this amendment is that if localities approve the transmission lines, and I would submit to you that there are localities in this state that are okay with proposed transmission line routes because they've been negotiated, because they've been dealt with, because they've been thought that this has a positive net overall impact and lessens an impact on private land, on farmland, on agricultural value. If those jurisdictions say, hey, this is a good idea, then you can do it. And there are places out there today, right now today, who are willing to do that. But you can't keep forcing all of the problems on the state on a handful of jurisdictions. You take the problems with overhead transmission lines and you say, that's your problem. I still get my energy. Lights still come on at my house, no problem. Overhead transmission line, that's 60 miles away on someone else's property. Let them worry about it. Let that county worry about it. Let their voters worry about it. That's not right. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And the amendment would allow localities to have much more influence over the process than what they currently have, where it can be jammed down their throat and jammed down their constituents' throat in a way that only hurts them and no one else seems to care. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I urge the body to reject this amendment, and there's a couple of reasons. The first is, let me just clarify what the bill does. What the bill does right now is it takes our current CPCN process at the Public Service Commission, and it makes it much more transparent. It improves the ability of local stakeholders, including local government, to participate. It forces more transparency about PJM's processes that led to the transmission. It maximizes the use of grid enhancing technologies in order to minimize the need for future transmission. It drives more reconductoring. It does a number of things that mitigate the challenges with running transmission through any part of the state. And I think that the bill as it is, I suspect, is a bipartisan bill. I know that there was a lot of Republican support for it, minority party support for it in the committee as well as majority party support. So that's what the bill overall does. The reason that this amendment is inappropriate in the bill is that what it's basically trying to do is to give veto power to local counties. And while we want to maximize the ability of local counties, local stakeholders, and expert opinion in the CPCN process, this sort of shifts the current CPCN balance of making sure that we're considering the broader state's needs, the broader region's needs, as well as individual local needs, including environmental needs, county needs, and electricity needs. So this throws that balance off, a balance that's been actually backed up not only by legislation over many years, process over many years, but also court decisions over many years. These questions about should there be local veto authority has been taken to the Supreme Court in Maryland, has been struck down. And the final thing that I want to add, because I do know that everybody in this body is concerned about electricity rates. And one of the things that this kind of veto authority would do in making it more difficult to build transmission, it would actually lead to higher electricity rates. And so for all those reasons, I urge the body to reject this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, briefly.
Briefly.
Thank you. The Supreme Court made that decision because we don't have a law. The Supreme Court of Maryland doesn't make law about where things are cited. They interpret our law. So if we pass the amendment, the Supreme Court will say, yep, that's fine. Local jurisdictions can do that. So that's a little bit of a red herring. And when we say that if we don't put a transmission line through Frederick, through Carroll, through Hartford, through northern Baltimore, our prices will go up in other parts of the state. Put the transmission line through your district. Put it through your district. See how it feels. See how it works. The transmission line has to go through your district. And I will tell you that in Allegheny County and Garrett County, there's a transmission line program where they're okay with that. But what the amendment does is it allows your county and your locals to say, hey, we had a real say in this. It didn't get jammed down our throats for the glory of the greater good. We had a say to suggest that the net effects and impacts on us outweighs that. And so at the end of the day, if you want these things, you want electricity prices to go down, build more power plants. If you want electricity prices to go down, build more windmills. I drive through the state's largest jurisdiction and second largest jurisdiction frequently. You know what I don't find there? Anywhere on any of the horizons, a single windmill. Not one. Not one. I drive down I-83 into downtown of our state's largest municipality. You know what I don't see? Not a single windmill. Not one. If you want it, get it. Go do it. Because you'll find when you go do it where you live that people who say they want green energy will jump up and howl in opposition like you just stepped on their foot. Because they don't want the transmission line coming through their neighborhood, and they don't want the windmill next to their property, and they don't want the nuclear power plant down the street from their school. They just want it to be in places where other people live, and that's not right. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to clarify that PSC nor any of us determine where the actual transmission line goes. That is a decision made by PJM and under FERC jurisdiction, and the PSC approves it. So there could be a transmission line through any county. This bill and this amendment does not change which counties it might go through. It just gives any county veto authority. And that is a dangerous precedent to set when we need to build transmission with maximum public input, maximum county input, but not veto authority. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you. I stand in support of this amendment. It's a great amendment. There was a project called TransSource that started about 5 years ago that was supposed to run massive transmission lines through preserved farmland. And that's actually on hold. We didn't kill it, it's on life support. Today, there's two different transmission lines that are being considered. One is Brandon Shores that will run smack dab through Baltimore County, Harford County, into Anne Arundel County. And the minority leader's right. If this was going through Montgomery County, your citizens would be irate. It is only fair that the local jurisdictions get a say. This line, the Brandon Shores line, is going to go through pristine parkland, through the largest state park, Gunpowder State Park. It's going to go through preserved farmland, and it is not necessary. If Brandon Shores remains open, we don't need this project. And if the counties get a say, then maybe the energy policy will go the right way. I will tell you what Pennsylvania does. They have farmers that embrace overhead power lines through their properties because they are well compensated. And what we're talking about here is eminent domain, which is not well compensated. Please support this amendment for local control, for all the people in Baltimore County, Harford County, Frederick County that are in tears over the transmission lines being proposed through their backyards, literally through their backyards. These new technology lines, you think that's going to reduce the health risks of having high voltage power lines through their backyard? It is not. This is also a public health issue. Please support this amendment.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to clarify for the body who might be confused, as I think the good delegate from Baltimore County is, the Brandon Shores line is actually running through current right-of-way, replacing essentially a line that already exists. I think she's referring to the Piedmont line, which I know there's concerns about, and this legislation actually will help with the transparency and with improving the process for the Piedmont line. But I just want to make sure folks are distinguishing those two lines. Thank you, and I
Madam
urge that we
Speaker.
reject the amendment.
Madam
Thank
Speaker.
you. Yes.
I would like to clarify that is not correct. I invite you to Kingsville, where they are putting a second line. They replaced the line 5 years ago, and they told property owners, literally it's going through their backyards. I'll send you a picture. They replaced the line, and now they're doubling it. They are not using the current poles. They are putting a new, entirely new line next to it that will hold 8 more lines. So they'll have 16 plus 16, 32 lines of high voltage power running through their backyard
And you don't think those families with children are concerned about the health risks of that? Please, I invite you to Kingsville to talk to the people whose properties are directly impacted by this. It is not replacing what's there, it is doubling what's there. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So for starters, this bill, I'll be voting on the bill when we eventually get there. I had a bill that was very similar, and I'm happy to support this bill. But on the amendment, I think this amendment is more than fair. So obviously there's been a lot of talk about the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project, the power line that's going to be going through northern Baltimore County, all of Carroll County, from the eastern border to the western border, and going into Frederick County. Now, one of the things that, there has been no issue that has been more important in my district, in my county, than this project. I mean, when I say folks showed up with pitchforks and flaming torches in Carroll County, they actually do that. We have had giant town hall meetings with 1,000 people showing up, and people are fired up. And the question that they ask over and over and over again is, who voted for this? Did you support this? Did you vote for this project? Did Congress vote for this project? And the thing that we've had, did the governor support this? Did the governor approve it? And the thing that we've had to explain over and over again is this convoluted, complicated process and how we got to this power line. And at no point did any of us, did anybody down in DC vote for this. It is a very complicated process, and the one thing that everybody wants to see is some element of local control. In fact, our governor was quoted back in November saying, as I have said from the start, I share grave concerns about how the study area for this project was determined. The lack of community involvement in the planning process and the lack of effective communication from the impacts of this project. And when he says community involvement, I would imagine he's probably thinking local. And that's what we're asking for with this amendment. And I mean, with this project and the contractor, we have been so misinformed on a local level from the very beginning. When after we left session last year and got back home in late spring, early summer, and we all started to learn about this as legislators, and our community started to learn about this. The folks that are putting this power line in, they were out there telling, oh no, we've had lots of community involvement. We've been coordinating with our elected officials, our elected leaders, and that was complete nonsense. And we had to explain to our constituents, to our voters, that no, we had nothing to do with this. And that is exactly why this amendment is needed, because we need local control for this project that I'm referring to and any other future project. Because this is not, the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project is just a start of this. Because until this state does a major shift and we start producing energy in the state, this is going to be the first of many, many power lines. And it's not going to be just coming through Carroll. It's going to be coming through everybody's district. And just like the minority leader said, wait till your folks start blowing you up over this, because it is terrible and it's terrifying, and people are really worried about losing their property. So I support this amendment because we do need local control when it comes to these elements. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Speaker,
Majority Whip.
move the previous question, please.
Question before the House is the previous question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
to explain my vote.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's previous question. I'm sorry. Previous
You're on a
question.
previous question.
Sorry. My fault.
That's okay. Yes, the previous question has been adopted. Clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative, the previous question has been adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Okay. On the Yes, I do know what I'm doing, okay? Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Clerk will call the roll. 1 minute. We have screen issues, okay? I understand the gentleman from Baltimore County wants to explain his vote. But let the clerk call the roll first.
Madam Speaker.
Madam- Yes.
On the amendment?
Madam Speaker, to explain my vote.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So I think this amendment is a good safety amendment. And what I mean by that is this. In Baltimore County, we had a unanimous bipartisan resolution just passed saying that these transmission lines are bad because of the threat of forest fires. If you look at, there's heat maps that are put out by the National Forest Service. If you look where these lines are running, they're in the sort of red area of where forest fires can occur. Now, unfortunately, a couple years ago in 2018, there was a horrendous fire, the Camp Fire in Northern California, that ended up killing 85 people because of an overhead transmission line. What the county asked for was for the ability to bury some of these lines in certain areas. And that's why I think that this would be a good negotiating tool for the counties to force some of these kinds of discussions. And so that's why I support this amendment, because I think it's the right thing for Baltimore County.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Just to explain my vote, and I do find it kind of shocking that we would call the question so quick. I understand this is, crossover, but this is the issue, as a delegate from Carroll County said. In northern Baltimore County, Carroll County, Frederick, we sat there, as he mentioned, with thousands of people at these town halls. We talk about local control. I want to make the point that was made at many of these town halls that we don't even know if this is going to even benefit the very people it's going to terrorize. Are these power lines going to really benefit Maryland to the point that the company PSG even said they would? We don't know. And the fact that these local individuals, these citizens, these Marylanders that are going to have their property values destroyed may not even benefit from something that's going to benefit data centers. I'm not sure that I can ever support something that's going to do something of the sort to just, the tears, the destruction. I've seen these people. I just cannot fathom the idea that we're not going to give them more of a control when something like this happens. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, to explain my vote.
Explain your vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There will be people who are surprised that I voted no on this amendment, because I did bring 3 bills trying to address this particular issue to ECM this year, and I want to thank our good colleague from Montgomery County and ECM for doing such great work on this. I do believe that we need guardrails around these projects, and I also do believe that this is only the first of many that we will see in the state of Maryland. The reason I voted no on this amendment, however, is I feel like it is much too broad, and that we have to have the option for some choices to be made that are difficult. But I would have liked a little more focused amendment that I could have supported. I will be voting in favor of the bill as well, because this is a step in the right direction, and I thank you for that. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Madam Speaker, I have 2 reasons for voting for this amendment. The first one is that the good delegate brought the issue up from Baltimore County about children and the concern of these electric lines, and kids are very resourceful. There could be high winds, an electric line can be broken and still be a live wire. And when I was a kid, I had an opportunity to see someone, a young child, who had been electrocuted, and she was in the hospital. It was horrendous. The child was constantly in pain. And so for that reason, and also because this is sort of like the 11th hour, and this has been a problem for a long time as far as the issue of we don't have the generation within the state. This is a complicated issue, and I think it needs to be local control, and it needs to be make sure that if we're having lines running through properties, that we need to hear from the citizens. So for those reasons, I vote in favor of this amendment.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered for third. Special order calendar number 51. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1296, Environment Managed Aquifer Recharge Pilot Program Establishment, favorable report as amended, adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I got an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 703323.
Amendment number 1.
Who so much to be considered the reading of the amendment?
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment is pretty straightforward. It's just a transparency amendment. It's asking for what we passed in Congress in 2010 called the Plain Writing Act, or the Plain Language Act, which says the government must display and give notice in plain language so that the public can understand it easily. What we're doing here is we're putting a pilot program of taking sewer water and then turning it into drinking water. It goes through a long process, but I do think that it's important, if we're going to run this pilot program here in Anne Arundel County, which we all drink the water here, and we have over 600,000 citizens, that the people that are going to be affected by this pilot program are fully aware and fully educated on what we plan to do. So what I'm asking is on the county websites, through the county newspaper or newsletter distribution, through email and all electronic forms of communication, clearly communicate to the public of what we're doing. I recall last year, and I worked with the ENT committee then and the chairman, we had a massive problem in my district with confined aquatic devices because it was a controversial plan for dredged material and nobody told the public, and it blew up. And it was tough to deal with. I think we've got it under control now. But when you give the public the opportunity to assume what's going to happen, they're going to assume the worst. So my goal with this amendment is just to make sure the public is fully aware and understands the process of what we're doing. We all remember Flint, Michigan from back in 2013, 2014. They had a major problem with their water supply, and the government was sued. We need to make sure that we are following good governance here, educating the public on what we're doing, and letting them know this is the pilot program, this is how it works. If we have to mitigate it, this is how we're going to handle it. And with that, I push the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I want to thank my friend from Anne Arundel County for his thoughtful amendment and for his conversations with myself and with the committee. Unfortunately, I'm going to ask the body to reject this amendment for the simple reason that it's redundant. Again, I agree with the concerns about notice. First of all, there are notice requirements already in the environment article in law, and MDE in their requested amendments and in the amended version of the bill goes a step further and inserts additional notification requirements, specifically notifying the public, make sure those things are posted, but also providing notice to any well that is served by this aquifer within a 2-hour radius, things like that. So I understand the intent of the amendment, but I think the committee views it as largely redundant. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I just want to push the point that what we really want is the plain language shown. I do see there's some requirements in there for reporting. I don't know if they're as robust as we would like to see, but I do want it in plain language because a lot of times we throw around things like treated water, which sounds great to everybody, until you find out it's actually sewer water. And we throw around aquifer, which sounds kind of foreign to people, but it is our drinking water. That's what it is. Aquifers are connected way down, and they can affect everybody in the state at some point, the way that our aquifers work. So I just want to give full transparency with this amendment, and I push the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to clarify one thing too, and I think I probably could have been clearer on this when we last spoke about it too. But when we're talking about this water that's been, again, through MDE's proposed amendments, which we accepted, it's been processed through reverse osmosis. That is actually no longer even considered to be gray water. That's considered to be potable drinking water. So with that, I again urge the body to resist the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Could I ask the floor leader a question?
Floor leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I know that MDE applies different requirements, including reporting and testing on public systems that are subject to the influence of surface water. Do you know how this bill will impact those systems and what MDE's response is now going to be on systems that currently aren't subject to the influence of surface water?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Yeah, so if you have a public water system and you're subject to the influence of surface water, which we're now injecting surface water into an underground aquifer, MDE has a lot more testing requirements and imposes a lot more mandates on those systems that are subject to the influence of surface water versus those that are not. So my question is there going to be additional testing required by MDE for those systems that are now subject to the influence of surface water, and what might those tests be?
So in the amendment to the bill, in the reprint, there are additional testing criteria and requirements for that water before it's even returned back to the aquifer.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about systems that, as the gentleman said, aquifers are all connected. So once an aquifer is subject to the influence of surface water, it's subject to a lot more requirements by MDE. So has MDE weighed in on whether or not they're going to impose those additional testing requirements now on all the public systems that may be nearby?
No, the bill is silent on that.
Yep. Well, thank you. Not good.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I have a few questions for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Madam Speaker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I understand it's a pilot Anne Arundel County, one aquifer. Will this water from this aquifer be fed to residential homes?
If that aquifer that they have chosen, I don't know if they've even selected a site, but if so, it will be, certain wells would be served by it, most likely.
And will those homes be notified?
Yes, every well that is served by that aquifer within a 2-hour driving radius is notified.
Okay. Second question, how about in terms of pharmaceuticals that are in the gray water? How are they handled? Are those removed?
So a lot of that, as I understand, a lot of that is accomplished through the reverse osmosis process. But again, there is testing in addition to that prior to the water being introduced into the aquifer.
So the process goes through reverse osmosis. I understand that that will demineralize the water as well. Is there any issue or concern about that going back into the aquifer?
There's broadly not much concern, but that's why MDE wanted additional oversight and permitting, and they can revoke the permit at any point. There's a lot of control that we've given MDE in the reprint to ensure that if there are any issues that arise or if they catch anything, that they have the authority to stop it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 49. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1111, Public Utilities, Solar Energy Generating Systems, Floating Systems, and Systems Located on Brownfields. Favorable report as amended adopted.
Okay. Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. It's Amendment 673428/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you so much. This is a pretty simple amendment.
What's it?
I think I have the wrong amendment. Do you have that amendment?
No, we don't.
Hold on. Trying again. I have an amendment at the desk, Madam Speaker. It is Amendment 153322/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a simple amendment that just says these are floating solar panels, which I think sounds like a good idea. Obviously we want to increase the amount of solar generation that we're getting to the recs that we have to get to in the state. But this amendment just says that the solar panels that are floating on the water may not contain PFAS. So we've had a lot of conversations in HGO about PFAS, and there are some of these solar panels that do contain PFAS. In addition to being on the panels, we also need to make sure that PFAS is not in the lines and other equipment that's going to potentially leak into the water. As you know, PFAS is a forever chemical, and we did pass a bill out of HGO with regards to PFAS. It is something that we absolutely need to deal with as a state, and I've supported that measure that came out of HGO. Look forward to working with that sponsor on additional measures to make sure we can remove these forever chemicals from our environment that's clearly affecting our children. So with that, I move my amendment, Madam Speaker.
Vice Chair.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm going to ask the body to reject this amendment. It appears to be dubious. First, I would say that we know that solar is a much cleaner form of energy than both oil and fracking. And oil and fracking both have PFAS in them, and we don't ban it in that or in those industries either. And so this is for a non-navigable waterway. There's no drinking water in it, and there's no fish that anybody is consuming in the pond, and for those reasons, I ask the body to reject the amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That was a big word. I looked it up. You're saying it's of questionable value. I disagree. This is just common sense. Why would we want to put PFAS in our water? Why would we do that? Why wouldn't we require these systems to be PFAS-free when they are on water? They're going to be leaching into the water. And this current bill would open up these floating solar systems to other areas. And brownfields are already brownfields. Why would we make them more brownfields? This is common sense. Let's take action here and require that any of these solar systems that float on water not have PFAS. Thank you.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Anybody else in the lounge? And they're going back. Okay. Clerk will take the call. There being 96 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 26. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1301, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Maryland Children's Health Program, and health insurance transfers to special pediatric hospitals prior authorizations. Favorable with amendments. Amendment number 1.
Floor leader, somebody.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, a little slow this morning. Yes, that's the one. Now I know. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 adds sponsors. Amendment number 2 clarifies that a special pediatric hospital is a facility in the state. Move the amendments, please.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 27. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1521, State Board of Social Work, Examiners, Membership and Examination Requirements. Favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. A favorable report. Yes. What? Technical difficulties. Okay. 27. Yes. Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. A favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Anybody in the lounge? Still in the lounge? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 66. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 121, Electric Companies, Regional Transmission Organizations Report Utility Transparency and Accountability Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 128 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 121, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 886, State Retirement and Pension System, Deferred Vested Former Members, Return of Service.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 886, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1033, State Retirement and Pension System, Reemployment Earnings Limitations, Maximum Average Final Compensation.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1033, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1091, Baltimore City Sheriff's Office Collective Bargaining Compensation.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 112 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1091, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1121, Child Care Scholarship Program, Youth Transitioning from Foster Placement to Successful Adulthood Pilot Program Establishment.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1121, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1270, Natural Resources Wildland Areas Overhead Transmission Lines.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move to special order this bill till March 27th.
Question for the House is the special order HB 1270 until March 27. All in favor signify by saying aye. No, the bill has been special ordered. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 72. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 49, Environment, Building, Energy Performance Standards, Alterations.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Building energy performance standards is something that has a very detrimental effect on an awful lot of industries. I think this bill has been amended from its original version to ameliorate some of those conditions, but not many. We had individuals who tried to say, hey, there are buildings that are going to be used for emergency purposes and shelters that maybe can't meet these standards, that need to have a resilient form of energy, and they can't meet the standards of the bill. without additional expenditures, and they're government owned or they're government leased. We rejected that. There's a gentleman who offered an amendment that said one of the industries that has a terrible time complying with it, and it's going to drive up their costs and price, and they tell us this year after year, is the grocery store industry. Because when you go into a grocery store, who uses more electric than them in just a regular store? Because a vast majority of what they have has to be constantly refrigerated. In the back, in the front, it has to be going 24/7, 365, massive amounts of electricity and refrigeration. And they tell you, if you make us try to comply with this, it's going to drive up our costs. We can't comply. We're going to have to pay these fines. Do you think they're going to pay the fine, or do you think they're going to raise the price of eggs? Do you think they're going to raise the price of meat? They're going to raise the price of orange juice? And we're going to come in and tell all of our constituents we're fighting so hard to lower your prices at the grocery store, but that policy is going to die on the altar of the great green God, because the great green God must always, always win here in Maryland. And so what I would suggest to you is we're going to have to get serious about the fact that, and I'll say this, I've said it 100 times, I'll say it 1,000,000 more. As sincere as you are, and I believe many of you are very sincere, you are not going to solve the issue of global climate change with policies in a state of 6 million people located in the middle of the East Coast corridor when states all around you are not going to follow your lead. You are not going to solve the problem of climate change with these policies. All you are doing is imposing higher costs and higher burdens on your own businesses, on your own job creators, on your own citizens, and then wondering what happened when 10 years go by and we don't grow and our economy doesn't grow, and the governor of our state sits there and says point blank, our private sector economy has just been decimated over the years. And as a result, we don't have organic growth in our revenues, and we can't pay for things you want to pay for, but we keep doing things like this because, I don't know, there are people out there who foolishly believe that this is somehow going to make a dent in the overall policy. The bill has been improved. It is still a bad concept, and you still need to look back and decide, what are we really doing here other than just checking a box on a scorecard? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'll be brief as well. The Climate Solutions Now Act is a bill we passed a few years ago. Many in the minority party, and maybe even some in the majority party, view the Climate Solutions Now Act as an aspirational type of legislation. I've heard many people say during different meetings that when you have a bill that doesn't go into effect fully until 15 or 20 years later, how can you really set policy in a firm and fair way, frankly, when we really don't know what's going to happen over the next 10 or 15 years? What we do know is that the legislature is going to be discussing and talking about bills that help advance natural gas for generation. I mean, I think we need as a state to recognize where the place can be for fossil fuels, natural gas, when we're trying to advance renewable energy goals. How can you do wind and solar at the same time that you're banning and limiting natural gas? So when we look at this bill, when we look at this bill where we're altering one of these standards under the Climate Solutions Now Act, it sort of speaks the same story. It's that, okay, we've passed a bill, we're putting in heavy burdens and mandates on property owners, many of which that we need from a tax perspective. Businesses that are growing and want to locate in the state of Maryland may look at this sort of obligation and say, no, I don't think so. I think I'll move, like the minority leader said, to another state. It's not that hard if you're a manufacturer, and it's not that hard if you're a distribution company, these large buildings. But what I have heard from many that represent property owners as brokers are saying that these are some of the very first mandates that are coming down that set the wrong tone and message about our business climate. The Building Energy Performance Standards, my last comment is I had a good meeting with MDE over the phone about what this is and what it looks like over time. What they're expecting is these building owners to eliminate natural gas as a form of energy and replace it with either innovative but probably untested technologies to heat and cool a space through electrification. And I got to say, I'm not persuaded
that these are the kind of technologies that are going to be efficient from a cost perspective, and will they be even effective from a practical perspective when you're trying to heat or cool a building that's 35,000 square feet or more. There is a place for natural gas. It is reliable, it's inexpensive, and when you're thinking about the cost of running a business, it is one of the main drivers. I know natural gas, when you extend pipelines, is an economic driver and an expander, when we as a state are doing the exact opposite. What states in our region are doing what we should be doing in Maryland, which is inviting and incentivizing economic development in our state. This bill tries, I think, in some respects, to acknowledge the difficulties under the original bill. I believe at the end of the day, this policy needs to be revisited in a fundamental way and not in an alteration of the original bill way. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I forget which delegate mentioned that when we passed the Climate Solutions Act in 2022, that we did have specific provisions with respect to reducing emissions from existing buildings. And that's because emissions from existing buildings are substantial, and there are efficient and economical ways to reduce them, both in the short term and the long term. I mean, we heard testimony from many architects, building engineers that talk about the many buildings that, not only the new ones that are being built, potentially all electric, but many existing buildings that without these types of guidelines and regulations in place are already converting their systems after the end of the useful life of their existing systems. So this is not untested technology. This is not really something new. And so what we've done through this bill is provided more detail and more flexibility as to how buildings can meet these building energy standards. We've added the possibility for credits, waiver of procedures, waiver provisions. So for example, if a building just put in a new gas-fired furnace and that has a useful life of 15 years, well, we're not saying you have to take that out before its useful life is realized. And so there's a waiver application to accomplish that. And there are also situations where, because of the size or of the building, that it may just not be feasible to install the types of building efficiency measures to get the significant reduction in energy use and direct emissions that are called for by this bill. And so we say, if that's the case, then you can file an application with the department to be exempted from them. So we are building in a fair amount of flexibility, and we did take a fair number of comments from the private sector. But again, we need to keep in mind the fact that building emissions are a substantial part of the greenhouse gas emissions emitted by the state. And so that's why the bill 3 years ago said that is our goal. We set some basic parameters for it. MDE is coming up with the regulations, and through this bill, we're providing more flexibility in MDE's regulations so that we can better achieve those long-term goals of reducing building emissions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
I just have a quick question. I was looking at the testimony, and I saw that there was a significant number of unfavorables, and I was just wondering if you could let us know if you have kind of taken care of all their concerns, because they were unfavorable, they weren't favorable with amendments, and it was significant folks, MML, MACO, the realtors, the building folks, actually one of our premier grocery stores in Harford County. So it was a significant bunch. So I'd like to hear if that's been resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I can't say that everyone's concerns were resolved and that everyone is now in a neutral posture with respect to the bill. But what I can say is that over a period of weeks, we met with many of the opponents or groups that were favorable with amendments and heard their concerns and included a fair number of their recommendations into the bill. Not in all cases, but a fair number. We sat down with private building owners or their associations. So we really went the extra mile to listen to their concerns and incorporated many of them. So while I can't say that everyone is now neutral on the bill, I would say that these amendments have considerably helped.
Is there any further debate?
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This particular bill will probably start many conversations that at least I'm going to have on the House floor as to why the majority party doesn't include nuclear power in green energy and in Tier 1. Because Calvert Cliffs nuclear power plant produces at any given time in excess of 40% of the state's electricity, which is clean energy. So we've already met the standard. This bill isn't necessary. None of these, and they are silly bills that say we're gonna fix climate change, but at the same time you're ignoring a nuclear power plant that is actually saving the state from passing these extremist bills, and they are extremist. But why is the state passing this bill? Because they're hiding behind the climate change mantra for the purpose of shaking down building owners across the state to get more money. If they really believed, if the majority party truly believed that climate change was an existential threat, they would have included nuclear power in the Tier 1 clean energy sources 2 decades ago, when my colleague from Calvert County, Delegate Tony O'Donnell, the former minority leader, brought it up time and again. And yet here we are in 2025, and it's still not included in Tier 1. And why is that? Well, we know why. Because the wind companies and the solar companies are huge supporters of this kind of bill, as are the people that love to raise taxes and raise revenues, the euphemism for taxes for the majority party, to shake one industry down after another. So once again, this will be the first of many bills on which I stand up and remind you that we've already met our clean energy standards and then some with Calvert Cliffs nuclear power plant. And this bill is one more ruse to the people of Maryland to shake them down for more money and to say, we only have 10 years left to live, which I heard 15 years ago. And if that were the case, they would have adopted Calvert Cliffs nuclear power plant in Tier 1 energy. I guess that must be why we are still living. And you want to know why I'm making fun of it? Because it's stupid. It's a stupid policy. Include nuclear energy in Tier 1.
Stay on the bill, please.
Oh, it's third reader, Madam Speaker. I can say a whole lot of things on third reader per your rule book. I'm playing by your rules. This is an important issue because time and again, I'm going to get up and talk about this issue. So try as you may to ignore nuclear power. And I'm talking about the cleanest of clean nuclear power to help Calvert Cliffs and to help the state meet its goals, which it's already met with the current nuclear power plant, and to expand the existing nuclear power plant with the most modern technology, which I'm sure they would like to do, not just here, but across the country. You still won't let that happen. It's pretty incredible. 25 years of having this conversation. 25. There's no existential crisis other than the fact that there are a lot of people in this state who depend on the majority party to continue the grift, the solar grift and the wind grift. I'm tired of it, and I'm not going to stop speaking. Thank you.
Environment and Transportation Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, first I want to thank my colleague from Calvert County for his support of moving the RPS jurisdiction to the ENT committee. I think it's probably not going to happen now that you've done that, but I appreciate the support for reorganizing our jurisdiction. I heard a lot of adjectives, maybe a few nouns, but a lot of adjectives and a lot of voices among the last few speakers. I just want to explain to everybody what this bill does. 3 years ago, we set a very broad policy on building energy performance standards to recognize that a large emitter of greenhouse gases in our state, as the Speaker Pro Tem explained, were existing buildings. So we set a broad policy in place. Over time, we have had to figure out how to focus that policy to make it more effective. And that's what this bill does. So building energy performance standards, requiring buildings to go down to zero emissions, is current law. So if you're happy with that policy, as maybe some of my left are, then vote against this bill. But if you want to put some more detail into our policy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and take account of things like feasibility, right, and have some exceptions we probably need, like hospitals, and to keep in mind cost effectiveness, you should be voting for this bill, because this bill puts the detail in place on our broad goal to help bring down our greenhouse gas emissions. We want to do that for a number of reasons. First of all, it's better to pollute less, okay? Whether you believe climate change is real, which it is, or not, it's better to pollute less. Burning fuel creates lots of pollutants, not just things that affect our climate. So if you want less pollution, I would vote for policies like this, okay? That is what this bill does. This bill puts more detail to a broad policy that we set and the prior governor let become law without his signature a few years ago. We're trying to make this work a little bit better for the people of Maryland so we can keep our climate goals in place, but also make it more feasible and more cost effective for them moving forward. And with that, I would ask for a green vote, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Member from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to make sure that there's some clarity between pollution and CO2, because we're always going after CO2. Nobody wants pollution. CO2 is different. CO2 makes up 0.4% of our total atmosphere. Less than 0.5%. But we're going to put a price tag of $275 billion on business owners in the state of Maryland to reduce that with no proof that it even changes the temperature of the earth. It is essential to life. The reason people are told to speak to their plants is because plants thrive off of CO2. We all emit CO2. It is a building block to life. I read a NASA study. NASA results confirm earlier research which found that 14% increase in CO2 between 1982 and 2010 resulted in 5 to 10% increase in green foliage cover in warm environments. Plant life is not just expanding in temperate regions. A 2018 study found the Sahara Desert had shrunk in an area about 8% over the previous 3 decades due to a CO2 fertilization-induced expansion of plant coverage. If you want to get rid of this CO2, we get rid of all the plants. Get all the plants, get rid of all the food, get rid of all of us. It makes no sense. We have demonized CO2 to the point where people think it's bad. It is God's blessing to us. We only have so much of it in the earth. If you look at our temperatures going back 425 million years, we were kind of cold. We're still coming out of an ice age. And things are getting better. You're 10 to 1 more likely to die in cold than heat. And it's really not getting that warm. In 1970, pulled some headlines. 75 to 80% of species would be extinct by 1995. Wrong. There won't be any more crude oil. That none of the land will be usable for agriculture in the world would be 11 degrees colder by the year 2000. Wrong. 200 million people would die each year from the starvation due to overpopulation. Life expectancy would plummet to 42 years and all ocean life would perish. Wrong. Western Europe, Northern America, and Australia will be famine by the year 2000. Wrong. Scientists at NASA predicts the coming of a new ice age within 50 years. Wrong. More than 90% of the tropical rainforest and 50% of the species would disappear within 30 years. Wrong. Moving into the 1980s, the island nation of Maldives would be completely underwater within 30 years, which wouldn't matter because experts have also predicted Maldives would run out of drinking water. Both wrong. Now moving into the 2000s, Pentagon analysts warned of global anarchy due to climate change. Major European cities would be underwater by 2020, at which point Britain would suffer from a Siberian climate. Wrong. In 2008, Bob Woodward of ABC News hosted a 2-hour climate change special warning that New York City would be underwater by 2015. Wrong. In 2009, former Vice President and climate activist Al Gore predicted that the Arctic Ocean would have no ice by 2014, which is the same thing Greta Thunberg told us just in 2022. Both wrong, and the ice is still there. It's understandable that most of the world has become suspect to a lot of this. Life is getting longer. Our expectancy is getting longer. CO2 is good. Pollution is bad. We're talking about CO2 here. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 49, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 258, Economic Development, West North Avenue Development Authority, alterations.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 127 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 258, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 600, Educational Equality for Service Members Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 600, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 618, State Lottery Internet Sales of Subscription Plans authorization.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 618, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 782, Study on Detecting Deadly Weapons in Public, Middle School, and High Schools.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 782, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 969, Property Tax Payment in lieu of Taxes Agreements, Broadband Service Providers.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 969, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1072, State Retirement and Pension System Administrative Fees Repeal.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1072, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1303, Child Care Centers Teacher Qualifications alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1303, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House
Madam
Bills.
Speaker.
Who?
Apologies for the interruption. Didn't
Yes.
want to miss the calendar.
Yes.
Vote change on HB 1072 to green, please.
Okay. Yes.
Vote change, House Bill 258 to red.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, vote change on 1303 to green.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, my button didn't work. Green on House Bill 1303.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, vote change on 1091.
Yep. Get your gold
Two
slips
no.
up. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 77. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 18, Vehicle Laws, Noise Abatement Monitoring Systems Pilot Program Inspection and Extension.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 18, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 452, Outdoor Lighting, Guidance and Use of State Funds.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 116 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 452, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 470, Vehicle Laws, Obscured, Modified, or Blocked Registration Plates and Registration Plate Covers.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 470, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 628, Highways, Sidewalks, and Bicycle Pathways Construction and Reconstruction.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 628, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 915, Motor Vehicles, Out-of-State Drivers, Automated Enforcement, Out-of-State Driver Accountability Act.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 103 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 915, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1085, Housing Authorities, Tax Exempt Status Modifications.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1085, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1193, Housing Development Permits, Local Reporting Requirements, Maryland Housing Data Transparency Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 118 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1193, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 78. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 164, Real Property, Wrongful Detainer, Time of Hearing, and Service of Process.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 164, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 716, Housing and Community Development Statewide Rental Assistance Voucher Program Eligibility Alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 103 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 716, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 750, Washington County Property Tax Credit Economic Development Projects.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 750, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1239, Fair Housing and Housing Discrimination Regulations, Intent and Discriminatory Effect.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Yes. Is there a debate?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise for a question?
Floor leader?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so good morning. I want to start by just saying I think business owners by nature want to comply with the law. To do that, I quite often say on the House floor that it's important to have clear, bright line paths to compliance with said laws. And so my question goes to this piece of legislation that speaks to the intent of discriminating as opposed to actually discriminating. And I suppose my first question is going to be, from a business perspective, not from a legal perspective, just from a layman's trying to understand what the bill does, what's the difference between the intent of discriminating and actually discriminating? How do you explain that to a business person?
Okay. So let's say that you have a property for rent. And in your description of renting this property, you have some discussions in terms of your policy that says anyone who rents this property must be of a certain income status only. That will be falls under this bill. You cannot. You would be falling under this bill because you are not specifically saying you are not renting to certain people, but there is an implied intent to that. Another example would be if you had a business and you were trying to employ some persons in the business, and you said that only persons that could meet education requirements of X, Y, Z, or you said that a person who could only speak certain languages could apply for your job opening. Those are not; those do not fall specifically under the protected classes, of which I'm sure you are aware of what the protected classes are. But they do reflect on how you could unintentionally be discriminating against those protected classes. That's what this bill does. And this is something that has been addressed at the federal level as well, and we are simply mirroring what takes place at the federal level as well.
So I understand the conversation you're having about examples. All right, so there may be 1,000 examples. It still doesn't quite get to my question of how do you create a clear, bright line path to compliance to the law, because the compliance to the law is to not discriminate. That is the gold standard that any business owner, especially in real estate or landlord-tenant, should be adhering to. So let me just make a statement. It is hard for me to understand from a business perspective the difference between discriminating and then
that which would be intending to discriminate. So let me ask my second question. If a business owner is in the unfortunate scenario of having received a complaint and finds himself in a court of law, it appears to me that there is an opportunity, because this bill basically shifts the burden of who has to make the claim from the plaintiff or the complaint maker to the defendant or the entity that's being charged under this act, if charge is the right word. But it literally says in the bill that a person has not violated a prohibition in the subsection, but to do that they have to show, I assume, to a court of law, a three-prong test. One, that the action was without discriminatory intent. Two, the action was justified by a legitimate business necessity. And three, the person could not have accomplished the legitimate business necessity by a less discriminatory means. So what I think I'm asking is, are we saying that the person or the business has to prove their innocence to a court, and they have to use a three-prong test in order to pass this burden?
The answer, you ask if they have to go through a three-pronged test. That is in the legislation.
My question is, do they have to prove their innocence after being charged by using a three-pronged test to do so?
Anytime you go to court, there is a process by which both sides get an opportunity to discuss their innocence and or their guilt.
I'm familiar with a plaintiff having to have a burden of proof. I am also familiar, because we have it in labor law, of the scenario of a rebuttable presumption, which you have a department come to an administrative conclusion, and you may show up in front of an administrative law judge and be granted the courtesy of having to prove your innocence in front of said judge by a rebuttable presumption. Let me just say there's a difference between violating a labor law and having to do that and having to defend yourself against a very serious charge of discrimination. In your bill, Mr. Floor Leader, it literally puts in the context that this discriminatory language is part of the police state, that the basis for this is being provided, and that we're expanding these opportunities for people to make claims. They're very serious claims, and so to say to a defendant that we'll grant you the courtesy of defending yourself by proving your innocence is not what I'm familiar with when it comes to serious charges of legal consequence. The obligation should fall, if you would agree or disagree, this is a question, the burden should fall to the entity that's making the claim to prove their case. Am I right or wrong?
Let me just refer you to the legislation. Obviously, I am not an attorney.
Mr. Floor Leader, I am referring to the legislation. I'm asking a very serious, compelling question about who's responsible for proving their case when they show up in a court of law under the bill as it's drafted.
Let me refer you to the legislation. Page 4, line 26. A person has not violated a prohibition in the subsection, in the section, if the action was without discrimination intent. The action was subjected by legitimate business necessity, and the person could not have accomplished the legitimate business necessity by less discriminatory means. That is what the bill says.
The bill is saying that a person has not violated this prohibition if they show up in a court and show a court through this three-pronged test that their act was without discriminatory intent, and the action was justified by a legitimate business necessity, and the person could not have accomplished the legitimate business necessity by a less discriminatory means. I don't know what the burden is. I don't know if it's by clear and convincing evidence, but what I'm saying, if I'm saying anything, is you're right to have in the bill, if we're going to pass a bill that relates to discriminatory intent, granting at least the defendant the ability to say, hey, you're wrong, and here are some of the standards. But what I'm saying and what I'm concerned about, and I'm not getting the answer to my questions, just to be blunt, what I'm saying, if I'm saying anything, is that it allows under this bill a complaint to be made without doing any rigor or any due diligence or making sure that it's a legitimate claim, because what it ends up doing is it hands the court of law the obligation of figuring out whether somebody has violated the law. And in this bill, what you're saying, in essence, is that the judge is going to look at the defendant and say, okay, if we're wrong, if the commission's wrong, if the plaintiff is wrong, we'll let you prove it, but you better pass this three-pronged test in order to do it. I'm just looking for a yes or no on this, because I believe it's a substantial challenge I'm making to why this bill even exists.
This is what I'm going to do to see if I can get some additional explanation on your questions regarding this bill in terms of the legal status of this. As again, I am not an attorney. I'm going to turn this over to one of the members of the committee who does have some legal experience to see if they can address your questions.
Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker, I yield to my colleague.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Delegate, for these questions. Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. Just want to be really clear about what this bill does. It codifies federal law. No landlord or housing provider in the state will face one single additional burden when this bill becomes law than they have today, because the Supreme Court held that the Fair Housing Act includes both acts of intentional discrimination and acts that have a disparate effect on protected classes. To answer your question, if a plaintiff believes that a policy from a housing provider has a discriminatory effect, they can take that case to court. I'll give you an example of one. Let's say a housing provider said that if you call 911 3 times in a 6-month period, we're evicting you. That's my policy as a housing provider. If you call 911 3 times in a 6-month period, you're getting evicted. That is a racially and gender and otherwise discriminatory, neutral on its face provision that could have a disparate impact on women who are victims of domestic violence. And if it turns out that a woman is evicted because she keeps calling 911 on her abusive partner, she could take a case to federal court and she could say, I have the burden. The burden starts with her. It's a 3-part burden shifting analysis. It starts with the plaintiff. She would say there is a facially neutral, but there is a policy that has a disparate impact on women who are victims of domestic violence and their children. If she can prove that by a preponderance of the evidence, the burden shifts to the defendant landlord to prove a legitimate business purpose for that reason. And if they're able to do that, the burden shifts back to the plaintiff to show that there was not an alternative to that legitimate business purpose that was less discriminatory. That's what's in the bill, but more crucially, again, that's current law. This bill changes nothing except for it codifies Supreme Court precedent. We didn't write this. The Supreme Court wrote it.
Let me just reinforce what I'm saying by restating my primary concern. Business owners want to comply with the law. To do so, they are and should be entitled to clear, bright line paths to compliance with said law. That was my first statement. What I said in addition to that is that in a very serious charge of discrimination, it is less clear to me the difference between discrimination, an act of discrimination, which I believe we all would understand, and that which includes an intent to discriminate. In other words, what I'm saying is that you will have claims being made, not over clear discrimination, but claims on the margins because they believe they have a reasonable chance of being successful in a court of law. Oh, by the way, the Attorney General can make a claim under this bill, just so we're clear. And that if not enough rigor is put in making an investigation and not enough work is being made in order to make a substantial claim to a court of law, well, that's okay, because all the judge has to do is say, well, you're here, and the only way we're going to be able to clear this case is for you, Mr. or Mrs. Defendant, or business, clear your name under a very serious charge, probably some of the most serious charges you can make against any individual or business. And to do so, you have to pass a 3-prong test. Miss one prong, you missed them all. But at the end of the day, and again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a business guy, when you ask an individual to show up in a court of law and prove their innocence, that is fundamentally wrong. Okay, further, it is, in my opinion, a violation of due process that relates to having the plaintiff prove their case, a serious case. So, Madam Speaker, I don't think there's going to be a good answer to this. I lived this under labor law. It's why I'm here today, because I watched a department in Maryland, Department of Labor, go after my company. And the way they did it was they used a rebuttable presumption. They said, okay, you are in violation of a labor law, but we'll let you show up at the administrative law judge and prove your innocence under a rebuttable presumption. And oh, by the way, with a similar three-pronged test. Now, we never got there because what the department did was a crappy job of doing an investigation. And so when we showed up in Annapolis and changed law, we did so because all we were saying is that the department had to do their job, had to make their case, and had they done any investigation, had they met our family, even for 20 minutes and asked questions, I can tell you right now, I wouldn't be here today. But I am here today because I know when I see it, injustice when it comes to a business or an individual having to show up in court under unusual circumstances. This bill flies in the face of what can and should be happening under serious claims of discrimination because it minimizes the obligation and the responsibility of the plaintiff to make their case, and it puts the burden of the one that's getting charged under enormous pressure to make a case under a three-prong example. Madam Speaker, it's why I'm here. I'm probably a one-trick pony when it comes to things like this, but I want to make sure that when we pass laws, that you do it so that businesses and individuals can comply with that law. I'll close by saying that we create clear, bright-line paths to compliance with the law. This doesn't do it. It doesn't pass the muster for me, and I'm voting no.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam
Yeah.
Speaker.
Yes.
Really excited to vote green on this bill that codifies existing federal law. In the 1970s, the Supreme Court held that the Fair Housing Act, which passed Congress in 1968, included both intentional acts of discrimination and acts that may be facially neutral, but that have a disparate impact on certain protected classes. As a result, there have been 40 or 50 years of training resources for housing providers so that they know what the bright line rules are. In fact, I would recommend any housing provider who is watching the floor debate go to the National Apartment Association's website at naahq.org/fair-housing-disparate impact. Right now, where you will find a number of different resources and PowerPoint presentations about how you can comply with the existing federal law. And if you do that, a beautiful thing happens. You're also magically in compliance with this law. I'm going to vote green. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I do have a question for the floor leader. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Or whichever.
What's up?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I love that green. That
Thank
green
you.
on green
Appreciate
is nice.
that.
Yeah.
Got a lot of green going on today. How many protected classes under the federal law?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's something like 6 or 7. I don't know off the top of my head. It's race, gender, sexual orientation, national origin, etc.
Yeah, we have 7 under the protected federal law.
Okay. Oh, look at me. Wow. That's not
We have it. Good job. We have an additional 4 in the state of Maryland. Now, when the previous floor leader brought up an example, he spoke about income levels. Income level is not a protected class. Source of income is a protected class. You can see where the confusion could lie when people are talking about level of income when they're looking at maybe a housing recommendation or application. It's going to be confusing when we talk about source of income versus level of income.
You're right.
Would you agree?
I do.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded the vote? Does anyone care to change the vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 99 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1239, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1343, Anne Arundel County Property Tax Daycare Centers and Child Care Centers.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1343, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1443, Local Government Hiring and Promotion Preferences for Veterans and Spouses of Service Members and Veterans Family Serve Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1443, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1524, Wacomico County Board of Education, Election of Members, Student Member, and Compensation.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 127 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1524, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Vote change 1085 to green. Thank you.
Okay. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 79. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 178, Vehicle Law Stopping, Standing, or Parking in a Bike Lane or Bicycle Path Prohibition.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 124 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 178, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 234, Vehicle Laws, Injury or Death of Vulnerable Individual, Penalties.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 234, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 562, Baltimore County Political Party Central Committee Elections.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 562, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 644, Vehicle Law, Speed Monitoring Systems, Residential Districts.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Thank you, Madam
Yes.
Speaker. May the floor leader please rise for a few questions?
Floor leader.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to see you. Happy St. Patty's Day. So in this bill, it talks a little bit, so this is an expansion of speed cameras in neighborhoods throughout the state with a maximum speed limit of 35 miles per hour, yes?
This bill is an expansion of local control.
Of local control. Walk me through that.
Sure. Right now, the state is prescriptive about which counties have the ability to place speed cameras in residential districts and which ones can't. For example, in your county and in my county, they can.
Right.
But in many other counties, they can't. And it creates a very awkward situation where different jurisdictions come hat in hand to my subcommittee every year and beg for authority in certain areas to place speed camera in these neighborhoods that I've never been to. And so you have a situation where the majority party in either red or blue counties have to make residential neighborhood by residential neighborhood determinations to local jurisdictions. We thought as a committee this is a bad way to do things. We should instead just allow everyone to decide whether they want to put speed cameras in their own neighborhoods themselves and get it out of a situation where I am the judge and the jury.
As far as the courts, so it is an expansion, and as far as the courts are concerned, what was their feedback considering that we saw a rise of 6,066 requests by trial last year?
So just to be clear, it's not necessarily an expansion. If no counties or take us up on this, then 0 new speed cameras will be built. It is an expansion of local control. Your question is what the courts think about new speed camera cases coming into the courts. The judiciary didn't have an opinion on this particular bill. I mean, I do think it's unfortunate that so many people are breaking the laws. I wish we would have a little bit more law and order, but the judiciary didn't weigh in.
Okay. And as far as notification, walk me through the notification on tickets for people.
Notification for tickets on what?
On the citations that they'll receive in the mail. Is that first class, second class?
I think that it's the existing practice currently, which is first class. No, we don't change anything about the mailing or the notification requirements in this bill. It's the same as every other.
And the revenue would come here to the general fund, correct?
And that's incorrect. It comes to the counties, and the counties can decide what that money is spent on. So, for example, in my county, and I think yours too, they've made it a priority to make sure that revenue goes back into the roads to try to make them safer. And so this isn't just a constant gotcha game, but instead that they're making those structural improvements to the roads, which we know is what really brings down speeds long term. Each county can make that decision, though. Right now, Anne Arundel and Montgomery County make it. This is going to open it up to a lot of other counties if they want to.
Anne Arundel County only does it at the Route 175 and 295 interchange. Is that what you're talking about when you say Anne Arundel County already does this?
Yes, and they make the
But
decisions.
it's only at that interchange.
Yeah, for now. But I mean, whatever they want to do.
But so this would expand it past that interchange as well.
It expands
in
Anne Arundel County's authority, and if you are not as much of a speed camera fan as I am, you could go to the council and the county executive to ask them not to do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
If I could ask the floor leader a question.
Leader?
How are you? Good afternoon. Good. How are you?
Great to see you.
Hey, is there a real-time posting of speed requirement on these cameras?
So in these residential neighborhoods, there's not, because we're not going to have a bunch of different signage on literally neighborhood streets. But in all the other bills, we have dutifully followed your legacy on the Environment and Transportation Committee to make sure that when we're talking about state highways, there is always real-time posting of speeds. But this program is different because it's in neighborhoods, and it would be a little strange to put massive road signs up on like a two-way neighborhood street that doesn't even have sidewalks. So no, this does not.
They're not massive today. I don't know if you've seen them or not. They're basically the size of a speed limit sign, and they're not as offensive to the community as the speed cameras themselves. So
If Washington County wanted to put them up, this authority gives Washington County the ability to do that.
I'm sure everyone will want to put them up. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, would you answer a question, please?
I would love to.
Thank you. We had some discussion about speed cameras in Baltimore County delegation, and one thing that came to light were the number of flags out there. It's hundreds and hundreds of them. Did you all discuss that in passing this and making any accommodation or allowances for people that get caught up with a flag? And just so the body understands, someone who has unpaid speed camera tickets can have a flag on their license or car registration, and that would disallow them from renewing those documents until that payment is made. As you can imagine, it's quite onerous for some people, and it can mean that they actually don't get to drive their car for not being able to pay these tickets that escalate. I think they come in at $40, but then there's a late fee and all kinds of fees that can be attached to it.
So three quick things. Thank you for those questions. First, I just want to remind everyone that everyone has a choice as to whether they get a speed camera ticket, because you have to go 12 miles or over the speed limit. 9 is actually totally fine. You're not going to get a camera ticket. But once you hit that 12, you've broken the law, and you're going to suffer some consequences, which is currently a $40 fine. To answer your second question, yes, we did discuss this issue in committee. You should be very proud of your district mate, because he brings this point up a lot. He's doing a great job, and especially on this point, you'd be very proud of him. And then the third, I would say the question of, are we doing anything about it? I think you will like to see another bill by yours truly lower down the calendar that starts creating an option for payment plans for this, so that we can get people who truly can't afford the late fees and the fines for an act that they commit, an intentional act to violate the law. But if they can't pay it, we do have some flexibility in terms of payment plans coming their way, because we do understand that not everyone can pay.
Thank you. Yes, my seatmate and I have analyzed this and discussed it at length, because we literally have hundreds of people in our district that get caught up in this, and they cannot renew their license or car registration because maybe their child was driving their car, and they've accrued these fines, tickets, fines. So thank you. I'll look for that bill.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 644, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1032, Baltimore City and Montgomery County Stop Sign Monitoring Systems Authorization.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 103 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1032, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1152, Real Property, Residential Rental Property, Pet Policy Disclosure, Pet Policy Transparency Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There be 120 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 1152, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1169, Howard County and Montgomery County Board of Education Mandatory School Holidays.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1169, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Yes.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to be recorded in the red on House Bill 452 and red on 1193.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, on House Bill 178, I'd like to be recorded no. Thank you.
Yes.
Speaker, 1193, red.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 234 to green.
Yes.
House Bill 1524, my button didn't work. I'd like to record it in the yay.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 1169 to red.
Okay. Oh, this side. Yes.
178, Madam Speaker, thank you, from yea to nay.
Yes.
Same bill, 178 to no, please.
Yes.
1524 to yay.
All righty.
Oh, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Last one, 1091 to red. Thank you.
Any? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 178 to yes, and House Bill 1152 to no. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 80. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1147, Correctional Services, Maryland Parole Commission Improvements in Transparency and Equity.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 100 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1147, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 81. The clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 65, Community Health Worker Appreciation Day.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 139 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 65, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 163, Motorhome and Recreational Vehicle Shows in Worcester County Permit for Out-of-State Dealers.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 163, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 411, State Designation, State Mineral, Chromite State Mineral Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 411, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 833, Carroll County Public Facilities Bond.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 833, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 899, General Provisions, Commemorative Months, Muslim American Heritage, and Jewish American Heritage Months.
Is on third reading
Madam
and
Speaker.
final passage. Is there any debate? There's a process how we did this.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak here. I am in support of this bill. I think it's a good bill. It's very important. But I wanted to go on the record that I was very disappointed that my bill that was very similar to this to celebrate Italian American heritage was not brought up for a vote. And I just wanted to go on the record again saying that Italian Americans have made great contributions to our state. And I think that if we're going to celebrate Caribbean heritage, Hispanic heritage, South Asian heritage, German heritage, Irish heritage, American Indian heritage, Black History Month, and a number of others that Italian Americans, we heard this bill on the same day. I just wanted to go on the record, deserve recognition as well, and I will be supporting this bill. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 899, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 913, Baltimore City Speed Monitoring Systems, Interstate 83.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 913, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 411, my figure didn't work. I was rejoicing the previous vote. Sorry.
Yes.
Vote change HB 178 to green.
Yes.
Vote change HB 163 to green.
Yes.
Vote change 163 to green.
Any other vote changes? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a tricky one. House Bill 829, vote on the previous question to red.
Is any other vote changes? Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 82. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1204, Public and Non-Public Schools Student Elopement Notice and Reporting Requirements, ACES Law.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1204, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1257, Landlord and Tenant Residential Leases, Fee Disclosures.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1257, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1316, Primary and Secondary Education, Youth-Centric Technology and Social Media Resource Guide.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1316, having received a constitutional majority,
Madam
is
Speaker.
declared passed.
My finger didn't work on that one. I'd like to be recorded in the green, please. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 1459, Economic Development, Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Board and Senator George C. Edwards Fund, alterations.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1459, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1475, Office of Child Care Advisory Council, Publicly Funded Pre-Kindergarten Analysis and Report, Mixed Delivery Model Viability Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1475, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1503, State Personnel Paid Family and Medical Leave.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can the floor leader rise on this for a few questions?
Floor leader.
How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Good, good. Thank you. Good to see you. So help me understand what this does. I see it's for state personnel. We did something for the private sector. Were we not included in that?
So this actually clarifies the policy in the state and conforms it not only to what we passed as a body to apply to the entire state, but also actually conforms what has been on the books in the state to the collective bargain agreement that was signed between our public sector employees and the executive branch earlier this year.
So with private sector, they're going to be paying into a fund to cover that. Is that the same with the state employees? Are we paying into this for paid leave?
No, so the state is essentially covering its own costs, is my understanding.
Wow, quite a difference. So who's covered in this? All state employees, just particular ones, or?
I believe it is all state employees, yes. There may be one or two, yes. I was going to say, there are a lot of different individual employee unions that collectively bargain with the state, but this would cover all of them.
So right now for state employees, is it transitioning from unpaid leave to paid leave? Do we not have that opportunity for leave right now? What does it do different?
Yeah, so currently state employees have parental leave, but that is it. So this would transition the system into the same rights that everybody else would have. And again, it's important to look. This was one of the amendments that was added into the bill. This is prospective. These do not go into effect until the new system goes into effect for everybody. So I know the Economic Matters Committee is working on a separate bill. I will leave that to their jurisdiction, but what is in this would follow the same lead of whatever is going to be decided for the broader system. So the parental leave that is currently available for state employees remains the law of the land until the new system goes into effect for everybody.
So this doesn't go any broader than parental leave. When I thought they expanded it much further. Is that not true?
No, so your question was what's currently on the books. So parental leave is what's currently on the books right now for a state employee as of today. When the entire program goes into effect for everybody in the state, what is in this bill will go into effect for the remainder of state employees, but not a day earlier.
So how broad does it get? Help me understand what is it? you know, how broad a family, if we're going from parental, tell me what family members are included.
Yeah, so I will defer to my colleagues from ECM, but I believe the categories, it's the same thing. It moves more to family leave. So if you are taking over, and you know, I'm not an expert on that program, but it is more of a paid family leave. So if you have an elderly relative that you need to care for, if you have a family member that's sick, if your child is sick and you need to take leave to take care of them, this would include that. Again, right now, if you're a state employee, the only thing you get is parental leave if you're out for the birth of a child.
Can we switch to? Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Chairman.
Basically, it would be to your immediate family. It would be for such things as sickness, bereavement, deployment for family, as well as adoption.
So it does cover if I have a member, you know, in the military that's getting ready for deployment, what would this extend for me?
You can extend up to 12 weeks of paid leave. Obviously, I think the limit right now is up to $1,000 a week. I will caution and clarify that many of the state agencies are going to self-insured, and self-insured really is just a matter of same thing a business can do. They're just offering the same plan. So you know how we're creating a fund and they're going to start taking out of their check every week. Well, those that are self-insured, they don't have to do that. Either you can go find a better plan, or and the state can do that as well, the different agencies, or many of them are just self-insuring, so they're just offering that outright. So there's nothing being taken out of your check.
So if my son was being deployed and he's going for active duty, whatever, I could take 12 weeks paid leave from the state as a parent?
You personally, no.
This would be 12 weeks for the military person?
No, but not you personally, because we don't, our leave doesn't work like that as elected officials.
Okay, as a state employee, my son's being deployed, I could take 12 weeks off to spend with him paid prior to his deployment.
I believe so. I've got to look. I can't remember for real. I know it's definitely for spouses. But I do believe it's immediate family members, adoption. The category is very specific.
Yes. If you may, Madam Speaker, so if you look on page 6 of the bill, it would allow to attend a qualifying exigency arising out of the deployment of a service member who is a family member of the employee. So if you are, when this bill takes effect, when the broader program goes into effect, however, whenever that date is settled, a executive branch employee would have the coverage that is available in this bill, which is almost identical to the coverage that is available to the general public when the broader program takes effect.
Okay, well, I appreciate all the answers to the questions. I certainly support our military and our military families, but also support private sector and feel that if we're going to hold private sector to a standard where the employer and the employee is paying for it, I think as state employees, we should be feeling the same, for lack of a better word, same pain. So for that reason, I will be voting against this bill, but thank you.
Is there any further debate? Floor leader. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The one point that I would urge, again, a green vote on this bill would be to the chair's earlier point of ECM, my good colleague, in a self-insured plan, that is exactly what is in this bill for the private sector would be the same for the state government. And it's, again, sort of the money that the state government is using to provide its employees that parental leave, that paid family leave. So with that, I would urge a green vote on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1503, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, House Bills number 83. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 992, Business Regulation, Maryland Franchise Registration and Disclosure Law, Alterations to Franchise Reform Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Minority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise just for a brief clarifying question, if I could?
Yes.
So in committee, there was some discussion about the bill originally that we believed removed a fee requirement. Were we confused about that? Is that fee still in there, or?
No, it's not confusing. This bill removes the fee requirement if you want to renew the sale, because right now Maryland is not very franchise-friendly. It takes too long to review the process, and this bill establishes a pilot program to expedite the review process and also waives the need to register with OAG, the Attorney General's office, before the sale, and also waives the renewal fee.
Okay.
So we have a myriad of things to make it easier to start and renew your franchise.
Okay. So
It was a unanimous vote, as you remember.
well, so I had some inside baseball information that maybe we were confused as to whether there's a fee waiver or not a fee
Yes,
waiver. And so
it
the
was a
question
fee
is
waiver.
is there a fee?
Yes.
There is
It was
a
a fee waiver. The fee is waived.
There's no fee. The fee's waived.
That's right.
Okay, so we were
Thank
not
you.
confused.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 992, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1016, Baltimore Convention and Tourism Redevelopment and Operating Authority Task Force revisions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1016, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1046, Mechanical Repair Contracts, Technical Service Bulletins.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1046, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1173, Montgomery County Speed Monitoring Systems, High Risk Highways.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 103 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1173, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1502, Baltimore City AIDS Prevention, Sterile Needle and Syringe Exchange Pilot Program, revisions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1502, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1510, Medical Records Notice of Destruction Method.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1510, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker.
Yeah.
May I be recorded in the green on 1502, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 1046, from nay to yay.
Who's saying that? Yes.
Madam Speaker, I did not record my vote on House Bill 1016. We recorded in red.
Any other vote change? Yes.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Green on House Bill 1316.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Green on House Bill 992.
All right. So who? Yes.
Green on House Bill 1524.
Okay.
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
green on 1510.
All right. Could the
Speaker.
leaders come up? Yes, go ahead.
Green on 992.
Okay.
Talking about second session. You still got your.
That ends the work at the desk for right now. Committee announcements.
Appropriations will not meet.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the Judiciary Committee will not be meeting.
Environment, Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Environment and Transportation Committee will not be meeting during this break.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, the Ways and Means Committee will meet very briefly, 10 minutes following the end of this floor session.
Yes, go ahead.
Tisk, tisk, tisk. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Economic Matters Committee will not be meeting.
HGL.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health and Government Operations Committee will not be meeting during this break.
Oh. We have one last order of business. This is the message from the Senate consent calendar number 19. Senate bills introduced in the House. Will clerk read the first bill and committee assignment?
Senate Bill 43, Senator Augustine, Health and Government Operations.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much we consider the reading of Senate Bill 43. Be considered the reading for all the bills on the calendar.
Hearing no objection, the bills are read the first time and referred to the appropriate committees.
Just a vote change.
Any delegation? Yes.
Quick vote change. House Bill 1239 to read.
Any? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Howard County House delegation will meet after the floor for just one quick vote at the cipher room. Thank you.
Any other delegation, caucus of delegation announcements? Okay. All right. Yes.
Madam Speaker, apologies. Ways and Means Committee, if you can meet in the old chamber, so we'll just take 1 minute of your time for a quick vote.
Okay. Yes. Whoop.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, just so you all know, Bobby and the team will be locking the chamber, so you can leave your laptops and materials here if you choose. You can leave it here. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. All right. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There being 138 members present, and the House is still in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stands adjourned until Monday, March 17th at 2:15 p.m. Legislative date, March 8th.
2:15 p.m.